Hello everyone, welcome back to Homestuck. If you weren't here for the last episode, I suggest you watch it, because everybody died. Well, not everybody. A few people didn't die. Like 3, maybe. But we are here with Calliope and Jade in the Ghost Bubble Dimension Zone. They're gonna hang out and talk about ghost stories. Stories from a ghost, anyway. And, yeah. So, let's just get into it. Also, by the way, page 7059. We're officially, like, in the home stretch. Kind of. There's, like, 8,600 pages, right? There's, like, an act... I was gonna say an act 2's worth left, but I don't think that's true. It's, like, act 1, 2, and 3's worth left.
I'm starting to remember the things she told me so vividly now. It's amazing what a creative project will do to get your mind turning.
Is my... Okay, it is working. Good. Woo! Smiley face. What shall I draw first?
The land of wind and shade. That's where the story starts.
I see. Which story exactly? Her story or yours?
Both, as a matter of fact. My story began with a tragedy on Loas, which led to meeting her in the first place. And then she used my memory of that tragedy as a starting point for her story, which turned out to be related.
Ooh, fascinating. I love stories.
I know.
They're like whispering to each other.
I'll start with mine, since that'll make everything else make more sense. So go ahead and start drawing.
What?
Loas!
Right. Oh, there it is. How is this?
Looks good. Don't forget to put a really tall house poking out of the top.
Oh, yes, of course. There we go. So you say your story begins with a tragedy. What shall I draw next to depict this tragedy?
Nothing yet. I'll get to that. But yes, the tragedy is why I was alone on the Golden Ship. It wasn't long after our 3-year journey began.
Oh, I like this art style.
I was relaxing in our makeshift living room, giving John and Dave Sprite some space to themselves for a while so they could catch up. John wanted to visit his home again, so I happily obliged and shrunk them both down so they could hang out in his tiny tall house. It seemed like a nice thing to do, but I came to regret that decision more than any I've ever made. I was minding my own business when out of nowhere... Loas exploded! I couldn't believe it. It was totally inexplicable. There was no trace of them at all. They were both dead. I suppose it must have been meant John's death was heroic, but I couldn't for the life of me imagine how. To me, it was as pointless and arbitrary as a death could be. I looked within myself as hard as I could to see if there was some power I had in all my omnipotence to bring them back, but I couldn't. They were gone. I'd spend the next 3 years on that ship without my 2 best friends. Sure, there were still concerts and chess guys to keep me company, but the loss was too much for me to bear. I felt so alone.
Oh.
Weeks and months went by. I didn't have the slightest sense of how quickly or slowly time was passing. Any sense of purpose to reaching the destination had vanished, and delicious though it was, no amount of Nana's cake could bring me comfort. Toward the end of the journey, when I was feeling particularly despondent... I fell asleep and had a dream, and that is when I met a very powerful, strangely charismatic creature. Her name was Calliope, wink.
Oh.
As I said, she was somewhat like you, and yet so unalike. Her presence was so serious and grave. Her hollow eyes were piercing, but not hostile. But the prevailing sense I got from her was one of loneliness. Before she even said a word, I could feel it somehow, that this was a deeply lonely soul. Until I met her, I thought I was the loneliest person in the universe, but a feeling told me she'd been here herself for a very long, long time. I felt sorry for her, and relating to her plight helped me overcome the feelings of intimidation, so we began to talk. We traded stories about ourselves. She spoke of the brother she killed, I spoke of the brother I lost, and when I mentioned John's death, that is when she became very serious again. She began to recount how John had died, repeating to me the same story I just told you. She described the spontaneous destruction of Loas, which left me alone for years. I wondered why she was recounting this tragedy that happened to me, and for that matter, how she knew it herself. She went on to say that Loas was destroyed because John's denizen had suddenly woken up. Typhus, a great monster of truly terrifying power. She said he had destroyed his land and slayed his own heir of breath, not out of malice, but to make a slight correction. I asked her, what do you mean, correction?
Oh, I think I understand. John's going to come back.
She said that the John from my reality and his entire planet needed to be erased, and that the slumbering denizen in all his mysterious wisdom somehow knew this. She told me that the dreams of a denizen draw from the same well of potential from which every conceivable possibility arises, the same place Skaya gets its power from. So if an agreement with a denizen is reached in one reality, that same denizen in another reality could become aware of it and respond accordingly. It seems that John, somewhere, in some other plane of existence, had made just such an agreement. She said that the John I knew, like herself, was only one version of a person. There was a different version of John from another reality poised to play a more significant role. You see, the John from that reality, in an act of desperation, had gone to see Typhus and struck a bargain with him. She would go on to explain the nature of that bargain in the next part of her story. But from my perspective, the consequence of this bargain was to lose my friends, and to live with that for years without understanding why. Losing them still hurt, but I was so relieved to at least understand the reason, and to realize their senseless deaths were actually serving a bigger purpose, so I thanked her for letting me know.
She was not human.
She told me she was not human, and had no frame of reference for empathizing with my feelings, but if there was one thing she could relate to, it was the feeling of being alone. The feeling of waiting for what seems like an eternity by yourself until finally your purpose presents itself.
Ellipses. I feel sorry for her. For myself, I suppose. But then again, that feeling is nothing new. It is an odd statement she made, though.
What?
Not having the frame of reference for empathizing with human feelings. If you asked me, I would say I have the vantage to relate to both humans and cherubs. So when you describe your feelings of sadness over losing friends, I'd have more than enough grounds for commiseration. Do you think that this version of me never...
Never what?
Never had human friends like I did?
I have no idea.
What a strange thought, to grow up with only my brother for company, and not even have my human friends to get me by. What a dreadful fate, the poor thing. Maybe that was the difference. What let her predominate over her brother, whereas I was too, humanly socialized to succeed in my cherubic rite of passage.
Could be. I don't know enough about cherub rites of passage to say either way. Human rites of passage either, for that matter.
So then, what happened?
Oh, right. Anyway, that's when she began her story in earnest. The one she summoned me in my dreams to tell me. The story of the other John who made a deal with Typhus. It began in the same place mine did, Loas. So, go on.
What?
Try Loas again.
Oh, wait. All over again?
No, you could just copy the first one you did.
What a lovely idea. I'd hate to hold up the pace of your exciting tale with a bunch of superfluous doodling. Meta. Alright. Good enough.
Yes, but there are supposed to be glitches around.
Glitches? What do you mean by glitches?
Like computery glitches, I think.
That sounds kind of hard to draw.
Yeah, okay. Why don't we just not worry about showing the glitches for this story? They'd probably just make it harder to see what's going on, which is probably the point now that I think about it.
The point of what?
I never thought much about it. It just seems like such a weird detail she mentioned, but I guess it was some sort of form of corruption in their session that made everything harder to understand.
Where did the corruption come from?
No idea. I guess it was just one more way everything got messed up for them. Like, just another surreal obstacle for a hero to overcome. Oh, that reminds me. You need to draw John in there as well.
Righto. Hey, there he be. There you go. One hero. Sans surreal obstacles.
Sans? Smile. When she mentioned that, I didn't give it a second thought. But now that I'm trying to reconstruct everything and tell you what to draw, Yeah, I guess when you're trying to tell a story, it forces you to think a lot more about everything than when you're just listening to one.
'Tis quite true. Perhaps you should start writing. How did she begin?
Let me think. Maybe we should pause before I go on.
Pause?
Like sort of an intermission so I can collect my thoughts a bit and give the audience a little breather between two significant arcs. We were at it for a pretty good while there, after all.
What? Audience?
Well, that would be you in this case. Oh, I know. I can doodle a quick story about the antics of the silly consorts on the Golden Ship before moving on.
Whoa! Hey, there they are.
One of the things I did to pass the time on the ship was give them funny names. Let's meet our cast of characters for this intermission, shall we? Let's see, there was Bubbleuppagus, Phips Ahoy, Knack Be Nimble, Slowpoke Malone,
Jade.
Detective Glub's Budget, Fidgety Herbert, Dr. Snossages, Yiffy Yiff.
No, it's just Yiff Yiff. Jade! Don't say that.
Huh?
I am sorry, but I do not care about this right now. Your concert friends are very cute, and their names are silly, and I love them all, but I want to hear the rest of the story. Please go back to illustrating her story. I'm so curious. Please, 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 please.
Well, okay, sorry. Yeah, you're right, this was a stupid diversion. Let's continue. Callie, your hand?
Oops. Pay no attention to that. Do carry on. Okay.
So, anyway, like I said, she just finished telling me that she was able to beat her brother in this reality. But apparently that wasn't supposed to happen. So she lived out the rest of her life in a doomed timeline and eventually died. She didn't mention how, and then she did this kind of fancy transition. Darn, I don't think I'll be able to do it justice. A transition to a story about my brother who was stuck in a doomed timeline too. I think I'll mess it up if I try to match what she said word for word. She had a really fanciful way of putting things.
There is no need to try to recite what she said. Just tell the story in your own voice, as you have already been doing. It will be more fun that way.
Okay, so the bottom line is, almost all of our friends had died, and John's only hope was to return to his planet and attempt to complete his personal quest. As you know, we all have personal quests that are unique to our planets. The nature of the quest is never easy to understand at first. They're presented to us through enigmatic riddles conveyed through the lore of the land. For John it was to journey to the place where the constellations dance beneath the clouds. It was said the air of breath was to free the stars from the shade and release them into heaven. It was just a mysterious way of saying what he really had to do, though. The stars were actually the fireflies. They've been flying around trapped beneath the overcast sky ever since John first brought Loas into existence by his arrival, and paradoxically they'd been imprisoned there for ages even before that. Such is the way of our lands. They were newly born the day we arrived, and yet they were always there. To free the fireflies, John would have to play a special song. It had to be played just right to summon the breeze through the pipes, but there was a problem. The pipes were all clogged with oil. The first day John came to this land, oil began oozing up from the core, flooding the pipes and filling the oceans. To play the song, first he'd need to clean up the oil, and to do that he'd need to face the slumbering one himself. You'd have to face Typhus.
Pipe dungeon. It's the water temple.
But as he wandered through the catacombs down to the planet's core, he wasn't thinking about freeing fireflies or cleaning up oil. He was seeking the help of his denizen to master a power he couldn't control. Lucky for him, denizens always seem to understand what you want, and more importantly what you need, whether you know it or not. Is something wrong, Callie?
Hmm?
Go ahead and draw Typhus.
Oh, yes,
You don't know what he looks like, do you?
I do, I believe I do. Or you do know, you don't. Okay.
It doesn't have to be perfect, just draw a big green snake monster.
A big green snake monster, you say?
Yeah, a snake monster with the most unspeakably hideous face you can imagine. But you don't have to be too literal about that. Feel free to draw something a little more representational.
I am not sure if I am particularly comfortable rendering such imagery.
Why not?
It strikes me as rather indecent, for reasons I would be too embarrassed to explain. I can't believe... Okay.
That's okay, so why don't I just try it?
Very well, but you must excuse me if I giggle.
Okay, but I don't see what's so indecent about a big ol' snake.
Tee-hee!
Lol.
Okay. So, I guess the idea is... How does that make sense, though? I mean, maybe... Okay. Maybe it's not literal. Because I was thinking, like, are they saying that the denizens have been cherubs the whole time? Because that would slightly make sense with, like, the fact that the denizens have, like, these crazy powers that it seems like the cherubs also have. But it wouldn't make any sense why they were in sex mode TM the whole time. But I think the idea is just Callie's being embarrassed, like the trolls were when we mentioned buckets, you know? It's just like the representation of it. A large snake. Anyway. Oh, there's a sound page. Wasn't expecting that.
When John got to the core, he arrived to find Typhus awake and ready for him. He was then presented with a choice. Stop! You're gonna make me crack up too. This part is serious.
I apologize. Please, go on. All right, sound. Let's see. Sound for Typhus. Or not? Oh, it's happening. Hold on. Oh, it's this. Again. Did Typhus get corrupted? Wait, this is from Secret of Mana? Interesting.
His choice was presented as a kind of riddle, spoken in a language only he can understand, spelling out the conditions he had to accept. But speaking from experience, once a player is given the choice between two courses of action, it'll hardly feel like a choice at all. If the heart is in the right place, then the right thing to do always seems obvious, so John accepted his denizen's terms, and with that, Typhus opened the valves to the core and flooded it with oil. There was no way out. He couldn't transform into wind because he was completely submerged, so he was faced with two possibilities. Either he could figure out how to make himself disappear completely using the ability he'd hoped to master, or he could drown in the oil. Drowning obviously would have been bad, but disappearing wouldn't be much better. He'd appear somewhere else, having made no progress on his personal quest. His planet would still be polluted, and he'd be no closer to playing his song. Somehow he understood the only way was to conceive of a third option, an idea beyond the simple binary set of outcomes before him. And, interestingly, it was coming to this understanding which gave him the first glimpse on how to control the power. He realized it wasn't himself he needed to make disappear. It was the oil. He dispersed every drop throughout existence.
And America loved it. Oh, we saw some of this, right? Is like the oil was just all over the place. Kind of, right? At least in John's, like as soon as he got into the medium, there was oil everywhere, and I at the time I just assumed it was from the imps. So, you know, it could have been intended to be that originally, but I feel like this does make sense. I don't know if there was oil on all of these, but there was definitely oil in the John area. On the shirt sleeve. The fruit gushers! There's so much. On the tiny piece of Arania's arm, sure.
Leaving a little mark for anyone who might notice, signifying his final mastery over his confining reality.
Oh, there's more. Memory Road. I mean, you guys can tell me if these were all here the whole time, or if they are retconned into existence now. Like, if I would go back now, they'd be there, but I don't know if they were there the whole time or not. Honestly, could have been. They're just little splotches of black. It'd be pretty hard to really pay attention to it.
But more importantly, leaving the planet clean. The pipes clear. Finally, they were ready to let the breeze flow, so he could play his song.
What's the song? Pipe organ kind, okay. there we go. We're back to the normal reality. Level of reality, anyway. Oh, the Salamander Village. How long ago was that? They're like,
Yeah, hell yeah.
whoa. Sonic the Hedgehog. Oh, we're extending. I thought it was going to be over. Making the whole planet disappear? Yeah. Well, also, he blew out the cartridge, so now it's not full of stuff. Act 6, Act 6, click. Thanks, not Liv Tyler. Catch them! You can't see my mouse, I'm clicking on them. There's a lot of sound pages in a row. Something big's happening. I mean, John's transcending to another universe, but... you know, not like we haven't done that before. Oh, okay. It's a John venture. Oh, can't do much. Walking through the woods. At least it's not so dark anymore. Salamanders, are you alive? They were living in the pipes. I think they got blasted into space. Dad's car! Aww. Still here after all this time. A. Oh, going back home. Roxy! She made it!
Hey, dude, I made it. Sup?
Is that where it ends? Okay, next page. Elevator stuck with meows. Oh, it's like sped up. You find a spunky babe in the cool blue outfit hanging out on your planet. She doesn't belong here. What the hell is going on, you wonder loudly? Well, wait. Maybe there might have been more to that. Hold on. Let me see if I have to click on the thing. Probably be smarter. You interrogate the rogue teen babe for answers. You mean girl. Rogue teen girl.
Sup, 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 sup. 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 Sup.
Well, I'm glad I didn't miss this. Wow. Well, thanks for all those answers.
Roxy? Sup.
What are you doing here? What are you doing here? There we go, that's better. I thought you were going to see your denizen.
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
How did it go?
It went okay.
Yeah? What happened?
Oh, you know, I ventured to spooky subterranean lair for a bit of cathartic and life-altering monster real talk.
Okay, that's a funny way of putting it, but yeah, me too.
Yup. I figured your monster quest happened. I mean, once the gross black shit disappeared and the wind started blowing like a motherfucker.
What did your monster say? I mean, your.
Oh, you did your.
Hey, maybe we should try to be more respectful about our god monsters. Her name's Nyx.
Okay. Not with a Y? Yeah, whatever.
Right. What did Nick say? Did she speak in the weird babbly language that you could still understand somehow, even though it made no sense?
Fuck yeah! It was downright incomprehensible in the most mysteriously understandable way. She told me this riddle thing that basically spread it all out for me. Like what my options were and what would happen if I did the options and like the metaphysical and moral consequences of doing those options.
Yeah, Typhus was pretty much the same thing with me. Typhus is the name of my snake monster, by the way.
Oh, you had a snake monster?
Yeah, he was awesome. So, did Nyx give you some sort of challenge to overcome, which by doing so you could get in touch with your powers? Which enabled you to appear here by doing this incredibly voidy thing that lets you phase out of existence and magically appear with me on this weird plane of reality.
Well, no. She pretty much just told me to fly to your planet, so I did.
Huh. You mean like, you just wrapped up your conversation with her, left her lair, and flew to Loas?
Yeah.
Okay.
LMFAO, I know, right? Wow, what a quest. But when you think about it, it was totes the obvious thing to do. I didn't know it at the time, but you were gonna make your whole planet disappear. So if I wanted to keep persisting through your history-altering hijinks, then all I really needed to do was, come along for the ride. No monsterly night magics needed.
Yeah, that makes sense. If only I'd brought Terezi.
There were stipulations, though. Mad stips, if you will, vis-a-vis buttloads of opaque goddess riddles.
Right. You mean the choice thing?
Yeah.
And what were the, mad stips?
She said, keep in mind, I am paraphrasing. If paraphrasing is even a thing you can do with stuff said in unfathomable monster jargon. That either I could stay behind and vanish into nothingness forever, and everyone in the new reality would inherit all the big-time responsibilities, including a version of myself who had no memory of any of this and never experienced all the loss and sadness I went through. Or I could go with you. But in doing so, everyone I loved would know that loss instead, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Yeah, Typhus gave me almost the exact same sort of choice. Something about other people feeling the loss I felt if I accepted his challenge, which I'm sure was probably not good. But, I mean, what else was I going to do? I couldn't just let things stay the way they were.
Yeah, exactly. Her caveat sounded ominous as shit, but there was something that didn't sit well with me about doing nothing. Accepting her terms just felt right, you know?
Yes.
So, here I am.
Yes!
Smile. Looks like we're gonna be spending a lot of time together.
I'm glad it worked out like this. I was fully prepared to do this alone, to hop around and change things in whatever way, and I would get to see my friends again, even if they don't remember all the same stuff I do, which was a lonely feeling, if that makes sense. But now I'll have someone else to remember the way things originally went.
Word.
Yes, word indeed.
But I know what you mean. It's nice to have, a witness, I guess. Someone to authenticate the rough shit you went through. Even if we never end up talking about it again, the fact that at least someone else knows makes it feel like it didn't all mean nothing.
Right.
Because even if it all gets erased and put back all better, I don't think the stuff we went through and all the feelings we had meant nothing. IMO, the feelings themselves and the way they shaped us, that all means, something. Forget it. Talking out my ass here.
No, it makes sense. Anyway, if nothing else, everything that happened brought us here. The stuff we're about to do, whatever it is, wouldn't be possible otherwise. And that feels pretty important if you ask me.
Okay. Look at all the fireflies floating around. Salamancer! It's probably not Salamancer, but...
So, all that wind, that was you, right?
Yeah.
I don't see any glitchy trash. Guess your humongous blowy spell did away with all that grody nonsense.
Oh, yeah, I guess you're right. I didn't even notice until you mentioned it, but I guess that dumb problem's finally busted. Thank God.
For real. I heard music too. Did you hear music?
Yeah, that was me too. I was playing a magic organ.
Oh, really?
Yeah, see, there's this huge organ.
That was almost certainly what she said. Wonk.
Oh, shush. Anyway, this huge pipe organ. It let me play the breeze, so to speak. I think that was the only way to get rid of all those clouds and let the fireflies go home.
This is their home, huh? Or this is their home, huh?
I guess so. I'm surprised by how my quest turned out, too, to be honest.
It's, kinda bittersweet, seeing all the Twinkly Herbert's bros and sisters going home.
Twinkly who?
My pet firefly. I'm guessing this is where he was from.
Oh.
They all seem happy, though. Look at them all blinking away. Into the blank ass yonder.
Wow, romantic.
Why is the sky blank, by the way?
It's blank because it's, nothing.
Nothing? Why is it nothing? Where even are we?
It's nothing because we're literally nowhere.
Okay. How can you tell it's actually a field of nothingness as opposed to just a bunch of regular empty space that happens to look vaguely neutral?
How can I tell? I guess I just can.
No, but how?
Why don't you ask yourself? You're the one who asked me why it was blank in the first place, so why'd you choose the term blank in your question?
Damn! Owned at the philosophies!
So owned. You'll find I'm the best there is at those.
It's true. I'm always getting owned at those by you and your kin. Recently, our crazy dog sister was schooling me on perfectly generic cubes.
You mean generic objects?
Generic fort blocks.
Yeah.
Now you are dropping truth bombs about blank skies on me. Shouldn't I be like innately stellar at this sort of stuff as a Void player? Must be coming off slow as fuck on the uptake here, aren't I?
Not really. You seem pretty... smart to me.
I do?
Yeah, you have a funny and snappy way of talking, like Dave. But unlike that knucklehead, I sense that behind all your jokes, you're probably some kind of brainiac like Rose.
Wow. wow.
Don't get me wrong, I meant knucklehead in a good way. Dave's actually the best dude, you'd like him.
I bet you are correct. So Dave, he's, my son, right?
Arg! Huh? I mean, yeah, pretty much. Honestly, it gets weird to think about all our relations in that way sometimes.
I getcha. Like when I think about you and Wolfjay being the kids of Jane and Jake, I... Oh my fucking god, it's so cute! So what is it you think's weird about Dave being my son?
I think we should change the subject.
Alright, what were we talking about again?
We were talking about the blank skies and fort blocks and such.
Oh, yes.
And you thought you should know more about things like that as a Void hero. Which reminds me, do you think you're any closer to making that alien egg? I mean, after seeing Nyx, did you feel like a power boost or anything?
A power boost? Like Mega Man or...
No, not like Mega Man. I mean like...
You're asking if she taught me to do the voidy thing?
Well, did she?
Nah, dude, I told you. We did our chat in some horseshit elven baloney tongue, and she just told me to come here. Like, that's literally it. Go to the planet if you want to live. So I did. There isn't really any soul-searching or getting in touch with my inner miracles.
Ow. Well, that's kind of a bummer. I hope you aren't shortchanged out of an important mystical and spiritual process of self-discovery. Huh? What?
Sorry, it's just, sometimes you sound so much like Jake, it's really quite uncanny. But yeah, I don't care about that really. It was either taking an uneventful and non-spiritual trip to a wind planet, or just stop existing altogether. I think I'll be fine without the self-discovery part.
Yeah. Or, wait, what if this was all part of it?
Part of what?
Your quest. Like to be here and learn how to use your powers better. We are kind of in a realm of literal nothingness right now. Maybe you'll be able to draw energy or inspiration from the void or whatever.
Nyx! Why, you old sly bitch.
Does that make sense?
It kind of does. It kind of loads of does.
Oh, sweet! I was just grasping at straws there, but now that you agree, I'm suddenly a lot more confident in my theory.
Yeah, Jake.
So why don't you try it out again?
What, the egg? Like right now?
Sure.
Meh. To be honest, I'm a bit sick of trying to summon that ugly damn egg. How about later? I would rather just keep BSing with you for a while rather than get right down to freaking business.
I guess there's no hurry. Not in this place, at least. I don't think this place has any bearing on the other timelines. It's almost like taking a time out from our canonical lives. So if you wanted, you could take as much time to practice here as you needed.
I'm down as heck with that. Could use a breather from my canonical life.
Me too. Even though I'm not sure I have one anymore.
Well, since we already talked about my quest, and like the spiritual Mega Man style power boosts and all, what about yours? How'd that go?
How'd it go? Pretty well, I'd say.
No, but I know you blew away some clouds and blanked out the sky and all, but the point was so you could learn to control your zappy powers, did you?
I think so, but I haven't really tried to control jump yet.
I see. Well, when you do, where do you think you'll jump at first?
I have no idea. The thought of changing the timeline is still mind-boggling to me.
Well, if nothing else, you should really go grab that ring before the smug troll can take it. I mean, there was lots of problems already, but her coming back to life really fucked us over to the shittiest max possible.
That's right! I definitely wanted to go back and get the ring off my couch before I lost it. At the very least, that way you can use it to help your friend.
Yup. Any other ideas?
Not much. So much has happened, it's hard to think about. And it's not even limited to what I've been through either. I've seen a lot of other crazy stuff just from my random jumps.
Like what?
Like the last place I was, actually. Just before I came back to find your session in ruins. I actually got into a pretty serious fight.
Oh?
With this guy, a Skull Kid. He is a huge asshole and a terrible artist.
You saw the Skull Kid's drawings?
Unfortunately. In fact, I was in his drawings once. It was a true nightmare come to life.
Wow.
Colon D. D colon, but you know.
I'm pretty much convinced he's the guy behind all the problems we've ever had, even though he's a complete ignoramus.
Dan, you mean it was Kali's bro?
Yeah, probably. I have a feeling someday we'll all have to take him down, but probably when he grows up to his adult self. When I beat him up, he was just a teen scamp like us, but with a skull for a head and a robot leg, and a cape which I ripped to shreds, and a pair of dumb suspenders.
You beat him up? Damn, y'all must be strong.
Meh, not particularly. I was just really angry and caught him off guard drawing some shitty animes.
Fuck his animes.
They were quite literally the worst animes I've ever seen. I hope I hurt his drawing hand so he never does any more ugly art for the rest of his stupid immortal skull monster life.
Yeah, I know that guy. He used to troll my friends all the time. Wait, no, he used to jeer us. He was a tool.
What is this?
It's just occurring to me. Aside from fixing the timeline, there's another benefit to my new power. Once we all decide we're ready to fight him, I can just zap us all right to him. We could take him by surprise again. I really doubt he'd be able to handle us if we all clobbered him at once.
We're gonna do the Earthbound thing. Zap to the conception. Anyway.
That's pretty good thinking, but, maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves here, making plans for Rumble Royale with Mangaka Dubro, Lord of the Shitwanks. We should probably focus on bringing our loved ones back to life first.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Bro's sword. Oh. I forgot. Oh, God. Okay. Is this the first thing we're gonna do, is bring the parents back to life?
Is that Dirk's anime sword? What's up with that?
And this is where Dave's bro died a few years ago. Probably while being heroic and cool. Jade made his body disappear to bury him, but I guess she left the sword here. She and Dave Sprite and I gathered around where he was buried, and Dave Sprite said some stuff about him. Stuff that was really funny and rambly, but also weirdly poignant. I guess it was a bit like a funeral.
A funeral, you say?
Yeah.
Phase.
Yoink!
Anyway. You're right. Taking a break from the mayhem is nice and all, but I should probably get going. I have a lot of responsibilities now. I hope I can live up to it.
Well, to quote an extremely wise and hunky dude I once knew, oh man, he was so wise, I wouldn't butcher his quote, but I think it all goes a little something like, "You can handle it, John. I believe in you."
Aw, thanks. Remember what I said, too, about practicing voidy stuff.
I will.
Good.
Alright, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Damn it.
What?
We're doing this again.
Doing what?
Being awkward instead of getting our shit in gear.
Whoops.
Too bad Grouchy Scarf Troll ain't here to coordinate another stilted goodbye.
Yeah, it's just as well though. There's no need for goodbyes. If I really can control it now, I should be able to come back here anytime I want, which means I won't be gone long.
Okay, I will be here, waiting, training, partying with those yellow lizards.
Those are salamanders.
Fuck.
Later, Roxy.
Yeah, okay. Zoop. I feel like this is the perfect place to stop. Okay, so Roxy's gonna practice her void powers. John is going to fix things. This should be interesting. Also, I guess it would make sense that they would have to replace their versions in the Prime timeline if they were coming back to it. So, conveniently, the planet just exploded thanks to typhus. How would Roxy have died, though? I guess we'll find out. But does that mean Dave Sprite is dead, too? In this new timeline? That seems a little rude. He was just chilling, bro. It also means we have completely undone Jade and Dave Sprite's relationship, I think. Either that or he died tragically in the middle of it, which I'm a little sad about, honestly. I kind of like that element, as I've said before a couple times. Obviously, I'm not into the shipping scene of Homestuck because, my god, that was so long ago when all of this started, and I don't really even read fan fiction. But of the ones set up so far, obviously Rose and Kanaya I approve of. But it's like canonical, so that kind of makes sense. But Roxy and John, I actually maybe it's just because I feel like they're two very good-hearted characters. They have a fair bit of chemistry. I actually kind of like their dynamic. They feel like the most like obvious, not obvious, stereotypical sort of teenage relationship you could have, right? It's just like two people being awkward and, you know, having a lot in common. I just know the second Roxy referenced Mega Man, John's brain exploded a little bit. He was like,
oh my god, she's a gamer girl.
Anyway. But I like the Jade and Dave Sprite thing too. I think I like them better as like exes. I think that is better probably because I don't know, Dave Sprite really isn't that important. I'd be happy if he got to live though. Anyway, but I do like that added layer of dynamic between her and Dave because they had like a little something in the original session, but they didn't really talk that much. So it's interesting to give them like a dynamic is essentially what I'm saying. Because like, I think I was saying this before, John and Dave have a dynamic, John and Jade have a dynamic, John and Rose have a dynamic, which is very clear. Rose and Dave have a clear dynamic. Rose and Jade don't really have a clear dynamic to me. I'd be interested to hear your guys' thoughts on that. And then Jade and Dave have like a semi-dynamic, right? Before the whole relationship thing with Dave Sprite. Like they like, what was it? They traded like music or something in the very early, I think like the mixtape thing where we heard all those of Dave's songs, that was Dave sending songs to Jade because they're both into music. Oh yeah, I forgot. Jade had like the huge guitar solo really early on. She should still have that, right? She could. Oh no, it got destroyed. Oh, right. I wonder if she could make another one through alchemy. But that's something that would be fun. You know, they could jam out. The problem is, it's very funny that Rose and Jade have like no real dynamic. The two female characters can't talk to each other. Ah! At least from the original human cast, because I think the trolls there's a lot more going on. Overall, I think I could say that like from the trolls, I think the ladies are far more impactful to the story than the gentlemen, as I think John said the other time.
All the troll dudes are like wimps.
Other than Carcat, I don't think a single one of them made like really shocking like interesting developments for the plot. They were either plot devices or used as death fodder. Which I'm fine with. That's fine, because we already have John and Dave, and now we have Dirk and Jake, who for some reason is important. But, and Carcat, it all kind of balances out that way. And I wouldn't trade, I think, Vriska, Terezi, Kanaya, and Aranea, that's the other one who I was thinking of that have made decent contributions. For like Solix and Tavros and Eridan, like, no, I'm fine with that. I think it was the correct choice. And it's also kind of interesting as like a point of difference between the two sessions. But anyway, I'm rambling for basically no reason. I just thought it was funny that John and Roxy have ended up having a fun dynamic, despite the fact I never would have expected that, you know? It wouldn't have been a thing that I'd thought of at all. Anyway, question of the day. Would you take the John choice? Would you do it? Because obviously we know the consequence, right? You're in the Doom timeline. You have the choice. You can essentially inflict trauma on everyone who knows you in the universe you're about to go to by having that version of you die so you can take their place. It's actually way tougher than it sounds. And like through the riddling of the denizens, it makes it a little easier because you don't entirely understand what you're doing. But that is a tough choice. It's like, okay, this is a Doom timeline. But in order to escape it, you have to essentially kill the version of you in a different timeline. It's a classic conundrum, I would say. I have a feeling most people would probably say no, maybe under normal circumstances, but I feel like it's going to be required for them to win the game. So maybe don't take that context into consideration. Like the changes that John are going to make here are coincidentally also happening with the Doom timeline thing. But if that wasn't a factor, you can't assume that it is. Like, you're Roxy in this situation, essentially. Where, like, yeah, you get some time to work on your powers, but other than saving your own life, it's not entirely that consequential, right? So that's a question. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye!